What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel here from the Geek Speak Nation channel, and I'm here to bring you my review of Jason Bourne.
Jason, this is Robert Dewey. Do you remember me?
Jason, your dad was a patriot.
He could see the threats that America was facing, and like you, he chose to serve his country
Out of a profound sense of duty.
He would not want to see you harm the agency.
You have to stop this. And you have to stop it now.
So, Jason Bourne is the fifth film in the franchise. This is the fourth one starring Matt Damon, and the third one to be directed by Paul Greengrass. Now, originally, Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass weren't going to come back to the project or the franchise in general because they thought the story was played out. They didn't really have a story to come back to. But over the course of the years and a heck of a lot of money being offered by studios, essentially it came down to Jason Bourne being made. And at the announcements of this film, I was really excited. I think there's a lot to do with the Bourne franchise, and I think there's always a story of espionage that can be made if done correctly with the franchise, not necessarily based on the books, but just coming up with an entirely fresh story. And for someone who actually enjoyed Bourne Legacy, who just thought the first act kind of slowed down, but halfway through the second act it really picked up, and when it hit its stride, it was really fun to watch. But nevertheless, original stories in the Bourne franchise are really fun to watch. For me, based off Legacy. So, coming into Jason Bourne, I was really excited, especially at the notion of having the original team come back. Now, it kind of does live up to that aspect of this prestigious trilogy that I really enjoyed. I just enjoyed the fun and the thrill of watching a Jason Bourne film, all three of the original trilogy. And yet this film kind of reminded me of Star Trek Beyond, where it was a very contained, straightforward film that holds up on its own, but whether or not it's really one of the best in the franchise or one of the best overall, that's subjective, and that's one part of the fun about film. But nevertheless, I didn't really enjoy this film as much as I had wanted to. And looking at it, I think it comes down to the story. A lot of the Bourne films really follow this same sort of pattern when you look at it. It's Jason Bourne remembers a new flashback. This leads him into a cool action sequence, which leads him to a person who is a puppet to this old wrinkly white guy who's actually behind it all. And that's the plot of all the films. But what makes this one different and kind of less engaging is the mystery behind it, because we know who Jason Bourne is, we know his secret identity, we know what he's done, but yet they still tried to find a way for him to go back and try to reveal something else about his past that honestly kind of felt forced in and kind of convenient about the connections that he had and how it played into the overall plot of the franchise, and that this type of detail would be completely overlooked and completely not mentioned throughout the entire trilogy that was originally created, or even the fourth film, when talking about the founders of Treadstone and Blackbriar and all these other programs. So the story is really what kind of holds the film back and is really not up to par with the rest of the production. I just think the story has a lot of good ideas at the start, and it starts off really great. The first 15-20 minutes of this film are riveting. You are engaged, you are locked in, and it is so much fun, and you just remember, oh my god, this is why I love Jason Bourne movies. But when watching this film, I just kind of had this moment of, it's not really clicking for me, because the story starts to go off on these tangents, and it's following this very thin plot line that could have been easily explained, but because of plot devices and misuses of characters, specifically Julia Stiles' character, it prolongs the plot for reasons that weren't really necessary, and added stakes and losses and costs that ultimately didn't add up to anything, and really kind of felt like a waste of time by the end of the film. And continuing off that notion, when it goes into tangents, it goes off to this tangent in a subplot about a person opening this app up, and then it becomes a debate about private security, and it becomes a debate about surveillance and all these things. But that conversation is never fully explored or doesn't really hold up. And that's what I enjoyed about the Bourne films, is that whenever it had a topic I wanted to talk about, the process of being a soldier, stakes, this shadow operation, this gritty underworld of government and actions that take place, those ideas are fully explored and fully fleshed out, and what it means to be an assassin. That's fully fleshed out in the trilogy. But the ideas that are introduced in this film aren't really well explored, and honestly shouldn't really be there in the first place, and they could have done better into integrating all of these things. But nevertheless, even though the story is not up to par with the production, everything else is. All the cast and the director give amazing performances and really give their A game. They give 100%. Looking at Paul Greengrass's direction, it's kind of hit or miss for me sometimes. I think when you look at him directing action, in that he is the king of shaky cam and handheld camera movements. Sorry, Michael Bay, but you're not. But looking at Paul Greengrass, who truly is the king of this method, he has this really great way of capturing realism and subtlety in environments, and in the way he captures action and the way he captures dialogue, and it's really engaging. And I think when you're looking at it firing on full cylinders, that's when you get a film like Captain Phillips or The Bourne Ultimatum. When you look at those films, you really see, oh wow, this is so engaging and it feels so real and gritty and in my face, and I am connected to what's happening. But when it comes to putting what he has in the editing room and the action and all these things, it kind of gets muddled. And it kind of has that same effect that it had in the Bourne Supremacy, where you had these action sequences going on, but it was so hard to tell what was happening because there were so many cuts, so many angles, so many zoom-ins, so much shakiness, that you're kind of like, I'm engaged because of the story and how they built up the tension so masterfully by Paul Greengrass, but at the same time, I can't get into all the aspects and all the wows of the action or the dialogue because certain things are just going off way too much and there are too many cuts and things like that. But nevertheless, I tip my hat to Paul Greengrass. He still was able to capture that same intensity, that same thriller of watching a Bourne film and watching all this action take place and all these crazy things going on screen. And nevertheless, he still told this okay story very well. So continuing on to the cast who came back, looking at characters previously like Julia Stiles, who I think is mismanaged and misused in this film. But nevertheless, for the time that we do have her in the film and the role that she plays, she does it very well, and she is a much hardened version of the character that she played before. And I really enjoyed what she did with this character, and I love her performance. And Julia Stiles, where you at, lady? Come back and do some more films, because she did a good job in this one. And looking at the other characters that are newly introduced, we have Alicia Vikander as this villain type, this new era of the agency, the new era of the CIA. She represents this transition into an always connected world, and because of that, her character is very forward-thinking. She is very precise. She's very perceptive, and she is a really, really great character. The only criticism I really have about Alicia Vikander's performance is that she still has some work to be done on her accent, her American accent. She does definitely have some slips into her native dialect. So that was just a little thing that kind of threw you off sometimes if you were really paying attention for it, only because if you know the actress or you've seen her in works like I have, then it kind of sticks out sometimes. But besides that, I think Alicia Vikander gave a great performance to what was ultimately a very well-written character. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones is great. He's intimidating, he's scary, he's all-knowing, he's all the great things you'd want in a villain played by Tommy Lee Jones, besides Two-Face in Batman Forever, I think it was. Ugh. Flashbacks. Either way, moving on to the rest of the cast, everyone does a great job, gives a great performance. The new assassin in this film does a really good job and has a lot of pathos and meaning for what he's doing, even though his character and why he's in the plot kind of a little wishy-washy, all things considered, why we haven't seen him before or heard about him before. But nevertheless, coming down to Matt Damon, he gives an excellent, excellent standout performance as Jason Bourne. Again, we find him in a place where he feels kind of lost, kind of like he was in between Bourne Supremacy and Bourne Ultimatum. And for him trying to find a purpose again is really interesting, but yet him still being the hardened, wise, just assassin that he is just really great. And Matt Damon is carrying the acting, he's carrying the performances, and he just gives a really, really great effort. And I'm really excited for what Matt Damon did. And if they ever do come back to the Bourne franchise, I would love, of course, to see more Matt Damon. He did a really, really great job portraying Jason Bourne again. And one aspect of it that was really, really interesting was that there were still stakes and that there was still this fear of, I don't know if Jason Bourne's going to get out of this alive or how is he going to get through, because when we look at the years that have passed since the Bourne Ultimatum, technology has developed so much, and that is reflected in the film as well. And like, it is so much harder for Jason Bourne to get through, and it's so much harder for Jason Bourne to actually navigate through the world we live in. And so that kind of brings me to this wall that we reach, because the part of the plot line ends up becoming, well, what place does he have in this new world? Well, when Jason Bourne's whole entire purpose was about tearing down the old one, what purpose would he want in trying to service or change the new one that's being a reiteration or becoming a reiteration of the old agency and the old way of conducting espionage and covert operations and things of that nature? So there's this conflict of ideals and this overall narrative that doesn't really go anywhere and doesn't really know what it wants to be or develop in connection to the flashbacks that Jason Bourne has presented during this film. So there's a lot of conflicts going on, but nevertheless, the performances and the direction are still great, and it's still an amazing, thrilling production, even though the story doesn't really match up to it. So with that, guys, I'm going to give Jason Bourne a 7.5 out of 10. So, have you seen Jason Bourne? Let me know in the comment sections down below what you thought about it. And remember, guys, if you loved it or if you hate it, if you want to hash it out, remember, all films are subjective. Just because I like this film doesn't mean you have to, and just because someone gets entertainment out of something you didn't doesn't mean you have to blast them for it. That's the beauty of cinema and the beauty of art, is that it is subjective and that people can get different experiences out of the same product. So with that, guys, let me know what you thought of the Bourne film, Jason Bourne, down below. And also let me know what's your favorite Bourne film. I'd probably say, for me, Ultimatum, because I will never forget the scene of when he drives off the parking deck. Like, that blew my mind when I saw it as a kid. But that's what I thought of the film, guys. Let me know what you thought. And also, if you liked my review, hit that like button. And if this is your first time here watching one of my videos, don't forget to subscribe and become a part of the Geek Nation. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, guys. 1,000. Pretty awesome. And guys, we're almost there. We're in the 980s, so woohoo! Thank you guys. So I know it's a short sleeve. I don't know. I like it though. I like this shirt. Nevertheless, I'm getting off topic in this outro. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It really does mean a lot. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Daniel, and don't forget to get geeky.